Hello and welcome to Women's Biz Podcast. I'm Annie Gibbins, founder and CEO of Women's Biz Global, and I invite you to get comfortable and listen in on candid conversations I have with fascinating women from around the globe. Business leaders, entrepreneurs, humanitarians, athletes, and a whole lot of regular people. Tune in as they let their guard down and open up on aspects of their business and life journey, how they measure success, and what they have learned along the way. These conversations aim to inspire you to embrace opportunities and possibilities beyond the limits of your imagination. Reclaim your power, strength, and vulnerability. Stand in your truth and propel yourself towards the life you dream to live. Hello to our beautiful listeners. Welcome to you to Women's Biz Podcast. Joining us today, we have Christine Michaelis. She is a seasoned marketing and creative startup coach. So all of you startups, this is going to be a great, engaging conversation for you today. She's had a journey from a thriving career in marketing and advertising spanning over 12 years. Then she was the founder of Creative Startup Academy. So she's not just an author of multiple books. No. She's also a sought after public speaker or a podcaster, a workshop facilitator. She does heaps and heaps of cool stuff. So her transition from corporate to coaching was driven by a deep passion for supporting startups. I love that. I love it when someone has a total, like a connection with something really, really specific, and startups need all the help they can get, right? Because it's really, really hard. So she's got a really hands-on approach. She's guided countless individuals to validate their business ideas and foster successful startups, because that's what we want, to go from idea to launch and then sustainability to when you want to exit from that. So we are going to have a great conversation today. Welcome to the program, Christine.
Hello, thank you so much for the warm welcome. Hello, everyone.
Coming all the way from Italy, and I'm in Australia. I love it when we have conversations across the world. So let's dive into this podcast and start talking about that wisdom of letting go. It's so hard when you're starting something to imagine one day I'm going to actually need to let it go. So we reflect on these different stages of business transition. They can be really interesting. They're very distinctive once you've done them. And when you're in them, it's like, So when you look back about your experiences, what sort of lessons have you learned that you might be able to help aspiring entrepreneurs navigate these kind of decisions that they're going to need to make?
Well, it can be very, very difficult to know when to let go. That's the first thing, when, and even if you know you have to let go of a business, to actually let go. Because usually we love what we do and we have this idea, and that can be at different stages, of course. It might be an idea that you have and you haven't even started on that idea. You haven't done anything. You just started with the research, and then you figure out it doesn't work, and then you have to let it go, which can be already difficult. I had that as well. I was working on an idea with a friend, actually, because we thought we need this in our lives, and we think it's super valuable for other people as well. And we did 3 months worth of research, which actually showed us it won't work. There's no market and no one will want this, and it just won't work. So we thought, okay, we have to let it go. And that was already difficult. I think the biggest lesson from that one is to be flexible when you're at that stage and doing some research. You need to be flexible and willing to let go, willing to let information in that will show you it doesn't work, because that's the first blockage I think that a lot of entrepreneurs have. They don't want to see it. They just want to see, no, it's great. It's a great idea. It will work. So just be open there to adjust your idea or to let it go completely, of course. So another way is to adjust the idea that you have to what your findings are. Another one Another situation, obviously, that could be is that you have already worked on that idea and it's just not profitable, and it won't be, or you don't have the right team behind you, or a co-founder, or you can't do it alone and you don't have one and you can't find one. So that might be another reason why you might have to let go of a business that you already started. And that can be also very difficult, because I know it's important to keep going and to see and to give it some time and be patient to be profitable and stuff, because usually we're not profitable from day one. But yeah, letting go can be very, very hard once you've put in a lot of effort. I had actually 2 projects like that, where I was working on one for 5 years and one for 3 years, and I had to let them go for all kind of different reasons. So that is really, really difficult. So what has helped me actually to let go? One, I already mentioned, that flexible, open mindset when things are not going well. Another thing is to look and see what's actually happening in the world. What kind of trend is there? What's actually external events are there that you cannot influence, that will influence your business though. Another thing is that you have to be prepared. What is it that you have to change to adjust the business if you don't want to let it go, or you don't have to let it go? And sometimes that can be difficult because you have maybe certain processes or things in place that you've done, and then also have everything ready to let go. So we're talking here about things because things are not working out. There's obviously the other part, things have worked out and you want to let it go and to exit your business, but we talk about it in a second. But if we talk about letting go of an idea or a business that you already worked on for a long time, what helped me was, first of all, have everything in writing. So I had everything in writing with my business partners and things like that. Even if it's a friend, even more so, you should have everything in writing, because maybe it's you that wants to go, but the business partner doesn't. And so you need to agree on as well, okay, what do you have to have in place and what do you get out of it? And if it's a profitable business, what's your responsibility as well once you want to leave? Meditation really helps as well, because it clears up your mind, it calms you down, because it's very stressful and sad as well to let go of something that you started because you were in love with that idea. You can even do some maybe letting go rituals if that's what is working for you. Crying. Crying helps, really. Let everything out. Talk about things. Find someone that can support you in that, and that could be a friend, that could be a mentor, it could be a professional that is helping with liquidations or anything like that. So another thing is as well, what is there to do from a legal perspective? What do you have to close down? How much does it cost you? How long does it take? Because it's not always just, from one day to another, I'm not doing that anymore and that's it. It depends on the legal entity, of course. If you're something like a sole trader, what it's called in the UK, so not a limited company or something, then that might be a bit easier. And then also you can focus on new ideas that you have. So that helps really to get over one of them and let go of things, because you're already starting to work on a new one. So these are just a few pointers for when you have to let go, or you want to let go of an idea for different kind of reasons that you might have decided or not.
I think it's a great topic to just dive into this podcast on. And some of our listeners might be like, but I want to start up and I want to grow and I want to do what I want to, the reason that this business has started. And yes, you should. But I tell you what, everyone who's actually done a startup incubator does that knowing their exit plan, right? And it's one of those, don't want to talk about that because we get passionate about the reason we started this business, all the hopes and the dreams associated with it. But I tell you what, it does help when you actually look at from that non-emotional perspective. All of those things that you've been saying, Christine, of, sometimes it's actually, the dream has finished and you're ready to sell that company. Well done, you. Sometimes, the world changed, things didn't work out, and it is important to know when to actually hit the kill button. Sometimes it's actually because you or maybe your business partner, and I'd love to dive into that next with you because I know you've done some team ventures and then turned it into then independent pursuits. And that's also, some of our listeners could be one way or the other. That's a whole different entity as well. And I've got a company with my husband and another couple, and those sorts of things happen. What will happen when one wants to leave or the other? There's so many times that this topic we need to actually talk about it, even though it can be uncomfortable. So I love the fact that we've done that. So let's talk about then your experience where you've gone from team ventures to independent. How have you found that?
So for me, I like working for myself and by myself as well, I have to say. I do like working with others, having co-founders, let's say, that have the same the power of decision like I have, can be sometimes very difficult because you have to agree on everything. Okay, you have to, and that might take certain rounds, and you have to for sure compromise, and you have to be more patient and be flexible because you have to think about the other person's strengths and weaknesses. You have to think about, okay, what am I good at? What's the other person good at? What is the clear role division here? And have we defined that well enough or not? And especially if you're starting out with people that you know very well, sometimes people think you don't have to write things down. You don't have to clarify things because it will work out. And if a situation comes up, then we solve it there and then. But I think it's so important to really think about, okay, who's doing what? How much can everyone put in? Because a lot of times it's maybe a side hustle and you start something out whilst you have a full-time job or part-time job or something like that. What are the expectations for each other? When can you tell each other off? So these conversations need to happen before actually the situation arises. And that's exactly what you said as well. I think it's so important to come up with all these possibilities and topics and exit. What happens if, what do we do if, before it actually happens? This way it's also a much lighter conversation, I think, because you can just talk about it as if, yeah, this might happen, but it probably won't. And then, but at least you put it then in writing and you agreed on something, and then the decision is easy and the communication will be much easier when a situation arises, whatever that is. If you have to tell someone off, if someone didn't deliver on what they promised, if someone wants to leave, if someone decides to cut down, and I don't know, maybe someone gets a family, is pregnant and needs to focus on some other stuff. Of course, maybe someone, hopefully not, gets ill or whatever it is. Maybe just not the passion that they cannot or don't want to put as much effort in as they said at the beginning. And all these things you need to think about beforehand. Now, me telling you that doesn't mean that I have done that. Okay. These are also learnings from what I've done. Also, thinking about really from a legal perspective, who is in the business officially and who is maybe a contributor, let's say, but not officially part of the business in the legal way, let's say, because these are also possibilities that people say, oh, I would love to get involved and this is what I do, but I don't want to be on paper for now. And then you decide, okay, but what happens if we have all of a sudden 3 million turnover? Would you like to be on paper? Do you want to get paid? Do you, then opinions change probably. So all these things. Now I had one project, one I already mentioned, that I was working on an idea which didn't even come into place because we decided not to do it. Another one was my idea. So I wanted to create a digital nomad town, and then a whole network of digital nomad towns across Europe, where the idea was to go into rural places where all the young people live. So these places are becoming ghost towns, and revive them by rebranding them basically as digital nomad towns and creating an amazing offer for digital nomads that like rural areas. No, very specific that was. So I came up with that idea whilst I was volunteering in a place in Italy, and I was talking to the person where I stayed for the volunteering job because it was the perfect place there as well. And he said, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea." So we started working on things. We worked out some stuff. I wrote a business plan that was about 150 pages because we were looking also for some investment and things like that. So we started working on the idea. We got architects in. We got everyone in to really understand all the costs and more, because there were so many houses as well that were empty, that we wanted to reconstruct and then rent out basically, or sell to digital nomads. Even got some funding, all of that. So that was me, though, legally on paper. And I had that team there, let's say, the local person and another couple that were supporting me, because you can't just go I'm German, as a German, let's say, as a foreigner into a little town and say, this is what I do, and then everything will work out. It's not. You need to get the buy-in from the locals. They need to understand what it actually is, the idea, and basically see that locals behind that idea as well. Even the mayor, everyone was in. And then when it started to get a bit more serious as well, and I said, okay, we need to get this and a trademark and this and that, then already the team was, let's say, pulling back a bit and saying, yeah, but no, I don't want to be involved like on that kind of level. Which is okay. So there we started talking about the roles. Okay, but who's doing what? Actually, also in a practical way. Yeah, who's greeting the people? Because I was living in the UK back then. Okay, so once we get going, I said, okay, I'm going to move here, of course, but we need to understand who's actually doing what, because I cannot be the one who's cleaning the houses, who's doing the check-ins, who's organizing all the events that we're doing and stuff like that. So we started to think about the role. So that worked out. But I could already feel, well, obviously there's more commitment from my side than from their side. And then it was actually as well that, there's no hard feelings there or anything. I still love the team and the place, but it didn't work out because the team dissolved in the end. So the couple got a baby, which is wonderful for them, and decided to leave. And then also the local decided that he's probably not there most of the time, because of his other girlfriend that wasn't from that place. So basically, it was clear. Well, it cannot work if it's just me, and it cannot work if the locals are not there. And how do I do all of that? So I folded that idea, and I worked on that for a long time. In the meantime, though, so that's not the end of the story. So that's where when you let go of something and then maybe just wait a bit, and maybe some other opportunities come up for the same idea, because the idea is great and it's happening all over the world now, which is great. Not from my side. In the end, I did let go of that idea completely. But whilst I was working on that idea, there was also some press, and I got invited into specific events to talk about that idea and what I'm planning to do. I was invited to different kind of towns because I wanted to evaluate if they want to do that concept as well. And someone saw me talking at one of these events. And then when I actually let go of that idea, about a few months later, when I already thought, okay, this is not going to happen, this person that saw me contacted me saying, hey, do you still want to do that? And I said, yeah, it didn't work out there where I wanted it to do. And she says, oh, why don't you do it here? Because I was thinking this is a great way of doing it where I live. So the whole process started again, and this time I had the right business partner, let's say, because also she very driven and new and all about numbers and things like that. We talked to the mayor, and everything basically was signed. Even like an official project was put in, and then unfortunately, the little town did not deliver on anything that was agreed. No, zero, zero, zero. And right at the beginning, before we actually started with everything, well, we already started with lots of communications and things like that, because we need to build up what's happening. And so I decided I'm not going to do it, because if that's already at the beginning, then I cannot count on that town to do whatever we agreed on, and I cannot force something that where the town is not behind it. So I let it go, and I let it go completely. That idea, and I cried a lot the first time and also the second time, because by that time I already worked on it for 5 years actually.
Oh, pain.
So in hindsight, the last thing, the reason, because I believe everything happens for a reason, and that's fine, because I found my future husband through that project. So there's always a good side. I wouldn't have met him if I wouldn't have done this project for 5 years. So yeah, that's the story of that. Letting go in between. Universe shows you another opportunities, you try again, and then you think like, no, okay, it's not going to happen. And I lost my passion for it, and that was okay as well.
Yeah, understandably. Oh my goodness, what a roller coaster ride. And I tell you what, so many of our listeners must be like, yep, that's been my experience. You know, sometimes you just have a startup and it just goes, thrives, and you exit. Other times, you know, you'll have multiple experiences like that. What I would love to tap in on what you've mentioned there of, you know, having partners, having co-founders compared to individuals. It sounds like there's so many variables as well, though, because of what you're sharing. You know, sometimes it's just like the town let you down, or it's not actually your partner. It's just, you know, there's other variables in the situation that you've got to just be really alert. And I think when you're less personal about it, you can actually exit quicker, you know, because when you're so sold onto the idea, sometimes you can miss those warning signs, those red flags that says, well, you know, you know, basically the bottom line is telling me this is an epic fail. But sometimes it's just like, no, another month, another month, another month. And that's what becomes really damaging.
Yeah, that is so true. And this is why I mentioned at the beginning. So we're all in our bubble and we're so in love with what we're doing.
Yes.
And maybe we think it's going to work. And the market research showed us, okay, it's going to work. Maybe there's even competitors that already do it. So there is a market there. But maybe in the way we do it, or where we do it, or with whom we started that business idea is not working. And that's also difficult conversations to have, isn't it? To let go of the other person. So let's say you want to continue in the business, and you want to get rid, if we talk about it like that blunt, of that other person.
It is. Yeah.
And I know someone else who was in that situation actually, and in the end that person has left the company instead of the person they didn't want in the company anymore, because it was impossible. So that can be very challenging as well. So how do you actually communicate this? And this is where the first conversation comes in, where you have to think about all these things right at the beginning before it ever happens, because again, it will be a more neutral ground, let's say, because it's just theoretically, because we need to then say, okay, really sentences like, right, but what if you don't deliver on what we agreed you will deliver?
Yes.
What can we do? What steps will you take to make up for it? Or what steps will we then take to evaluate if you're the right business partner or not? And you can ask that, and it's difficult even at the beginning, because that really already shows, well, you don't trust me, you think I don't know what I'm doing, or you know, these can be these kind of reactions, and that's fine, I think, but you have to get through that. And I think once it's all cleared out, that can really help. that can really help. So these difficult conversations that people try to avoid, have them and put that in writing. Never
Yes.
ever just agree on something and then and
Yes.
especially if it's more personal, like you said, if it's with a friend or you know very well.
Oh, most definitely. And if you think it's emotionally stressful, taxing to be able to have these conversations at the beginning, I tell you what, it's very emotional when they do happen and you haven't had those conversations.
Yes.
It's even like the time you spent, if if your partner's in a business, how much time, you don't want one spending 20 hours and you spending 80 hours, it might be, what sort of revenue are you definitely bringing in? Or do you actually appreciate one will be the face of the business, bring that revenue in, and the other one will be managing it? It's so important, isn't it, that we actually know who's doing what, and there are advantages. So, don't be thinking, some of our listeners might go, oh, is it really worth having a partner? Yes, it can be, because that partner can be a complete complement to you and add incredible value in areas that you're not interested in, not gifted in. So it can be absolutely fantastic. What we're talking about, though, is actually having those hard conversations, those legal-like conversations, going, right, well, what's going to happen when X, Y, Z happen, and really talk it through. And when you're at the beginning, you can't imagine it, because you've got your rose-colored glasses on, and we don't want to burst the bubble, and it might not happen. But when things get rocky, and every business will have challenges. It's so important that we go, oh, this is this scenario, right? We're going to actually have to revisit that conversation. That is such an easier place to be in. Now, you must have so many strategies, so many mindset shifts that have helped you navigate these kind of challenges. Can you share any of those with the listeners?
Yeah, so I think acceptance is a big thing. Yeah, accepting that it might not work. Again, from the beginning. I mean, you shouldn't set up for failure, of course. However, just okay, I accept and see what's happening. I mean, also what's happened in the world a few years back now, where all the world went crazy and everything upside down and everything changed for pretty much every business, for better or worse. But this acceptance, okay, I need to be flexible and I need to adjust things along my journey. That's one thing. So with external factors, let's say, then we have some internal factors with co-founders or team members or something that might change as well, because maybe they want to leave, maybe you want them to leave, all the things that we mentioned before. But also then for yourself, be aware that your life is changing over time. So if you're in here for the long run, then you're not the same when you start out, and you might be early 30s and then you're early 40s, because your life will change, your values will change, maybe where you are will change, maybe what you want to achieve in life change, maybe something happened in your life, positive or negative, whatever it is, that will make you rethink everything. Maybe you have new passions. And I mean, my Creative Startup Academy morphed so many times over 12 years into that what it is right now, and it will probably change again, who knows. But just accepting that fact can be very difficult, and knowing that you have to set up the processes also right from the beginning like that. Okay, because you have to, if you set something up with specific software, tools, processes and everything, communication, branding and so on, if you want to change something, that can be very difficult. But it doesn't have to be, if you thought about it from the beginning and think, okay, I'm going to be a bit more flexible here. I'm going to be able to adjust to what's happening in the market, to what's happening to me, to what's happening to other people. And also what exactly it is that you offer, because you have to listen to feedback from customers. You have to listen to what they say is working well and what's not working well. So also there you have to be open to receive this, let's say, negative feedback again, and learn from it. And okay, yeah, that's valid feedback, so I'm going to change something about it. That is really, really important. You have to be very patient as well, with something trial and error. There's a lot of that in when you have your own business, to see what works, what doesn't work, to adjust. But acceptance and flexibility are so important, and that's with processes, but also in the mind, especially in the mind, with things that are happening. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Now, you have had multiple business experiences. Have you been able to effectively leverage your networks? You know, you've built so many relationships from these experiences. And so, have you managed to be able to, you know, really take the benefits, take those connections, the relationships, the communications into your current endeavors? And has that been a tricky thing for you to do?
Yes, I do that every day, basically. And I think the network is the most important thing that you can have. You should start building a supportive network around you once you have the idea, not only once you launched or anything, because in the end, we all go through similar challenges. We all have some knowledge to share. We can all support each other. So in the supportive network can be friends, family, of course, if we talk about that circle. There, of course, you need to keep in mind, if you don't have any, let's say, entrepreneurial person in your family, they probably will not understand the challenges that you come across. And that's okay. They're there for other things. Okay. They can bring you back down when you have to, and when you're too stressed, maybe they will be able to take you out of your business life and do something with you that has nothing to do with business, and so on. So there's a part for that as well, even if they're not entrepreneurial, let's say. And then you have, of course, people who do similar things like you do. And then you have the so-called competitors. A lot of people, they don't even think about having them in their network. And I think they should, because there's so many collaboration opportunities, learnings that you can learn from each other. Maybe you have clients that you can't take on because you don't have the time or you don't want to. So you want to refer them to someone else. And then there's a network, of course, of other entrepreneurs that have nothing to do with what you're doing, but are in a different field. And then you have potential clients and so on. So these are all kind of, let's say, networks that you need to start building from the beginning. And I think I've always done that. So I've met so many people, like you just mentioned, through all my different kind of businesses, traveling, working, networking, moving around countries and things like that. That, yes, I was always able to make use of them, be it for support, mental support, okay, be it for having a shoulder to cry on, being a sparring partner to exchange ideas, maybe even I have done a lot of swapping of services and skills, let's say skill swapping, where I support someone with getting more organized and productive, or with their marketing strategy or whatever, and they help me with another side that they're doing in their business, and that's basically for free, but we support each other and we learn from each other. Second of all, for all the things that I'm doing, let's say with my Creative Startup Academy, there's lots of things where I need external input and where I need external people. So like for my podcast, like you as well, I need guests. So I've done 3 years worth of podcasting without ever thinking about, oh my God, who do I interview next? Who do I have next? Because they were all people from my network. I've sent out, I think I had about 30 episodes ready before I even launched the podcast, with all the people from my network that I knew. I've recently launched a magazine. Also there, contributors to the magazine. No problem. I just sent an email out to my network and I have 50 people that want to contribute. So also with that, it's really useful. And of course, then referrals for actual clients or something like that, that comes also out of the network. But this is how I basically leverage my network, let's say. So for support, for skill swapping, for contributions and referrals in both ways, of course.
Yeah, I love that. And I hope you're picking up some tips, our listeners. Write those points down. So valuable. I love it actually on our journey, how not only do we keep those beautiful connections and continue to grow those relationships, but we get a breadth of understanding around diverse cultures, different business methodologies. You learn so much. So it's not exactly that like other people would think of, oh, just keep people in your network so you can utilize them when you're doing something. No. You really do just broaden yourself as a business professional by having these people, different ways of thinking, different ways of doing things. We learn off them as well. And those cross-cultural insights, can really influence us and influence the approaches and the decision making that we have moving forward. Do you feel that as you've grown in your profession and you then tap into all of these different people in your network, it's actually, although we get the benefits of having more people available when we're wanting to do things such as podcasts, as you've said, might be anthology books and bits and pieces, but it also can help you develop into just a better entrepreneur.
Yes, for sure. And that's why I continue doing my podcast, because I learned so many things from my guests. I enjoy it. I love everything. And I had also, when I'm at networking events, if you just communicate also about a new idea or what you're working on, because lots of times people are afraid to do so. First of all, they think, oh, someone will steal the idea maybe. But second of all, they just think, oh, it's not ripe enough to talk about it. Because if I just tell people a bit and you don't seem too sure yet, then maybe that reflects on me that I don't know what I'm doing. In the end, if you just communicate, even in a rough state or idea what you want to do, you get so much feedback and ideas already. I mean, I had so many things. I'm currently working more on a signature talk as well for my public speaking, and I was in this networking event and saying, oh yeah, I'm currently working on my signature talk. I've spoken a lot in the past, so on podcasts, on events, and everywhere really, in person, online, and so on, which is great. But now it doesn't mean that I have to know it all, and it doesn't mean that I cannot improve things. So I wanted to really dive deeper into that, and I mentioned that, and someone said, oh, but and there wasn't a clear connection for me with the topic I wanted to talk about and why I wanted to talk about it, and something that I've done. And that person said, oh, but have you thought about this and that with all your experience in that? And I was like, oh my God, that's it. That's the topic for the signature talk. And now I'm starting working on that. And that's only because I was able and happy to talk about something that's not ready yet, and to get some feedback.
Yeah, such great advice. You don't have to have everything perfect until you share. Chat in the motions. You just grab extra information, extra input, different perspectives. It just enriches everything you do. And that's been one of my learnings along the way, Christine, of, rather than waiting till everything's just set and you then launch something, invite people along the way, because it's exciting and it's important to share. I tell you what, being an entrepreneur can be, particularly the solopreneurs listening in, it can be really lonely, really challenging. And when you have other people in your network, they'll be cheering you on, going, well done you, starting a podcast, or, doing your next project, going for a pitch for something, and they'll add a different flavor, a different energy to it as well. So definitely embrace that. Oh, we could chat all day. It's been such a great conversation. I love the information that you've shared with us today, and it's been challenging to our listeners. So I want you to, wherever you're listening in on our audio platforms, or if you're on YouTube or LinkedIn Live, whatever it is, make sure you pop some questions in the chat. We would love to get back to you following this interview. So nothing silly, no questions too crazy. Really reach out and pose that question to us. And even if you found that challenging, going, wow, you should be all positive, Yes, we are. We are very positive in business. We want you to thrive, which is why we want you to have these conversations right from the beginning. Always start something knowing what your exit plan may be. And that can be really challenging. So it's been really wonderful having this opportunity to talk about that with you today. Definitely connect with both of us if you would like to ask us more information. So thank you so much for being on the program today, Christine. I have really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks everyone for listening. Hopefully to connect with you. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Women's Biz Podcast. I'm Annie Gibbins, founder and CEO of Women's Biz Global. And if you would like to fast track your future success, pop on over to womensbizglobal.com, where you can find out how our coaching, media and publishing opportunities are helping women just like you to become and be seen as the trusted authorities in their niche. Inquire today and start reining in the abundance you desire.